Hello friends, we are going to start a new course on history chapter 1st bricks, beads and bones. Welcome to you all on my YouTube channel Guruji. So now we discuss the Harappan civilization. Why we call it the Harappan civilization? You know the answer? The answer is because Harappa was the first site where this unique culture was discovered. Due to this we call it the Harappan civilization. So now we know in which period the Harappan civilization was discovered. So early Harappan culture was discovered before 2600 BCE and mature Harappa culture was discovered between 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE, and late Harappa culture after 1900 BC it was discovered. So the reason from which it has been extended, so it has been extended from northern boundary Manda, southern boundary Daimabad, to eastern boundary Alamgirpur, western boundary. So the gender characteristic of Harappa civilization are as follows. Alexander Cunningham appointed as the first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India in 1862, and Dr. Sahani discovered Harappa in 1921. R.D. Banerjee discovered Mohenjo-daro in 1992, and Sir John Marshall announced the discovery of Indus Valley Civilization in 1924, and Kalibangan was excavated by a Ghosh in 1953, and S.R. Rao discovered Lothal in 1955. Sangal was discovered by S.S. Talwar and R.S. Bist in 1968. So, how was the life of people of Harappa? So we know their economical life was main occupation was agriculture, animal rearing, trade and craft production, and their major achievement was uses of weight and measure. So we know about their religious life. So they worshipped Lord Shiva, Mother Goddess, animals and trees. Their religion belief incorporated in Hinduism. So their social life was, the family was the basic unit. Size of the family might have been differed from area to area. Social stratification, ruling class, middle class and lower class are as follows, and people take different kinds of diets. They wore cotton class dresses and fond of wearing jewelry. So the timeline is as follows: from where from 2 million before present, lower Paleolithic, to 600 BC to 400 BC, early historic. You just learn it. Now we discuss about the subsistence strategies, how they live. So basically the Harappan ate a wide range of plant and animal product including fish, and Harappan culture developed in areas occupied by early Harappan civilization. So the bones of wild species found suggest the Harappas hunted these animals themselves or obtained meat from other hunting communities. Bones of fish and fowl are also found. Now, what we other things are found: wheat, barley, lentil, chickpea, sesame, and we also found cattle, sheep, goat, buffalo, pigs, boar, deer, gharial, and bones of fish. Representation in agricultural technologies. Representation on seals and terracotta sculpture indicate that the bull was known, and archaeologists extrapolate from this that auction were used for plugging. This agriculture technology is difficult to reconstruct. Actual Gary practices were seed broadcast or plug blends. So terracotta models of the plug have been found at site in Cholistan and at Banwali. Evidence of a plugged field at Kalibangan has also been found. Oxen used for plugging and terracotta models of plug found at site at Cholistan suggest this. So traces of irrigation canals have been found at Sodagai in Afghanistan, and evidence of a plugged field are found in Kalibangan, Rajasthan. So field had two sets of furrows at right angle to each other, suggesting two different crops were grown together. So most Harappan sites are located in semi-arid lands where irrigation was probably required for agriculture. Canals found sites of Sardugai in Afghanistan, and water reservoirs found in Dholvira and Gujarat. So this is the terracotta bull which we found and knows about the agriculture technology is what used. So Mohenjo-daro, a planned urban center, or you can say city. So here it is divided in two sections, in a citadel and a lower town. So now we know about the citadel. The citadel were constructed on mud bricks platform and it was walled, so we can say it was physically separated from the lower towns, and these include the warehouse, a massive structure of which the lower brick portion remains right now, and the upper portion probably of wood was the great bath. It was a large rectangular tank in courtyard surrounded by a corridor on all four sides. The lower town. So it was a carefully planned drainage system. The roads and streets were laid out along an approximate grid pattern, and the center of house was courtyard. Room are on all the sides. Courtyard is the center of activities, cooking, weaving, particularly hot and dry weather. So, privacy is no windows along ground level. Main entrances does not give direct view of the courtyard. Every house has own bathroom. Staircase was as proof of second story building. Wells raised from outside also used by passer by. So the people which just go out, they just also use the wells, and 700 wells in Mohenjo-daro was, as mentioned, was found. So guys, the citadel was basically used for public purposes. There was a warehouse which was a massive structure, and the great bath is large rectangular tank, and the courtyard surrounded by corridors on all four sides. Tank made watertight setting. So due to this, it was known as great bath, and bricks on edge using mortar of geysers had rooms on three sides, one of which had a large well. So water from tank followed into huge drains. So what was the social differences? If we track those, then we know that in burials in Harappa suggest us that dead laid in pits, dead bodies are basically laid in pits, and differences in the way the burial pit made. Some hollowed out spaces were laid with bricks. Some contain pottery or and ornaments indicating afterlife, and jewelry found of men and women. So, on whole, they did not believe in burying precious things. And when we looking for luxuries, it suggested that it was an another study. So when we study artifacts, the first category object of daily use and made of out of some stone or clay, canes, poetry, needles, suggest us. So found distributed throughout settlements in this Harappan civilization, and luxuries are made of non-local, costly and complicated technologies, and found mostly in Mohenjo-daro settlement and basically in Harappa as well. But it is not found in Kalibangan or small settlements. So gold was very rare things which were there. So now we find about the craft production. So the craft production is basically in craft production, Chanudaro is a tiny settlement exclusively devoted to craft production, including bead making, cell cutting, metal working, sail making, and wheat making. So the variety of materials used to make beads is remarkable. The stone like carnelian, jasper, crystal, quartz, stetitite was used, and metal like copper, bronze, gold were used, and shapes like disc shaped, cylindrical shaped, spherical shaped, barrel shaped, and decorated by incising or painting. So techniques for making beads differ according to the material, as beads module out of a paste made of statite powder, and specialized drills have been found at Chanudaro, Lothal, and recently Dholavira for grinding, flaking, polishing, and drilling. So now we know that Nageshwar and Balakot were a specialized center for making shell objects, including bangles, ladders, and inlay. So we found the center of crop production by identifying that archaeological identified centers of production by looking for raw materials and tool used. So they suggest raw material stones, noodles, wholesales, copper ore, tools, unfinished object, reject and waste material, in which waste is one of the best indicator of craft work. Sometimes larger waste pieces were used up to make a smaller object. So these traces suggest that apart from a small specialized center, craft production was also undertaken in large cities such as Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. This is Harappa burial pottery which you are seeing here. So, what was the strategies for procuring materials? So, clay were locally available, and many such as stone, timber, and metal had to be procured from outside the alluvial plain. So they procured from the subcontinent and beyond. The Harappan procured materials for craft production in various ways. Terracotta toy models of bullock carts suggest that this was one important means of transportation goods and people across land routes. So another strategy for procuring raw materials may have been to send expeditions which established communication with local communities. This is a priest king which we found in Harappan civilization, and we know about the contact of distinct land. So copper probably brought from Oman on the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula, and chemical analysis suggests Omani copper and Harappan copper with the traces of nickel suggest common origin. So other traces of contact was distinctive vessels, large Harappan jar coated with thick layer of black clay found at Omani sites. So thick coating prevented percolation of liquids exchanged by Harappa for Omani copper, and Mesopotamian tests suggest that copper from region called Magan and Magan was large quantity of copper with nickel traces found at Mesopotamian sites, and long distance contact includes Harappan seals, weights, ties and beads. So Mesopotamian test database to the 3rd millennium BC refer to copper coming from a region called Magan, perhaps a name from Oman. So other archaeological finds include Harappan seals, weights, ties and beads from Meluha, possibly the Harappan region. So it is likely that communication with Oman, Bahrain or Mesopotamia was by sea, and Mesopotamian texts refer to Meluha as a land of seafarers. Besides, we found depictions of ships and boats on seals. Now we know about the seal script weights. So seals and sailings were used to facilitate long distance communication. The sailing also conveyed the identity of the sender. So an enigmatic script seals. Harappan seals usually have a line of writing, probably containing the name and title of the owner. Scholars have also suggested that the motif, generally an animal, conveyed a meaning to those who could not read, and they are written from right to left. Writing found on just like seals, copper tools, rims and jars, copper, terracotta tablets, jewelry, bone rods, even ancient sign boards. So most inscriptions are short, the longest containing about 26 signs. Although the script remains undeciphered to date, it was evidently not alphabetical, as it has just too many signs, somewhere between 375 and 400. So now we know about the weights. In weights, exchanges was regulated by a precise system of weights, usually made of stone called Ncert and generally cubical with no markings. Metal scale pens have also been found in Harappan. This is a Harappan Unicode seal which is found from Harappan sites. So, and the ancient authority suggests there are indication of complex decision being taken and implemented in Harappan society. So bricks not produced in single center, yet form uniformity from Jammu to Gujarat settlements strategically set up. So now we know about the places and kings, which are basically a large building found at Mohenjo-daro was labeled as a place by archaeologists but no spectacular founds were associated with it. A stone statue was laboured and continues to be known as the priest king, which can be as called to be the ruler of Harappan era and time. So, uh, no records in archaeological find are there, and religious practice not understood. Different theory, opinion on rule, no rule, equal rights to all, as per some archaeologists said. So different rulers in different region are there as per some archaeologists, and single ruler due to uniformity found. And now these are some suggest which archaeological suggest to us in ancient authority finding. Now we know about the end of the civilization of Harappa. So there is evidence that by 6th century 1800 BCE, most of the mature Harappan site in regions such as Cholistan had been abandoned. Simultaneously, there was an expansion of population into new settlements in Gujarat, Haryana, and western Uttar Pradesh. Several explanations for the decline of Harappan civilization are climatic change, deforestation, excessive floods, the shifting or drying up of rivers, and the end was evidenced by the disappearance of seal, the script, distinctive beads and pottery, the shift from a standardized weight system to the use of local weights, and the decline and abandonment of cities. Now we know how the we discovered the Harappan civilization. So basically, when Harappan sites fell into ruin, people gradually forget about all to them. So then we know about there are artifacts discovered, occasionally surfaced, washed by floods or exposed by soil erosion, or turned up while plugging fields or digging for treasures. Now there is a Cunningham confusion, who is the first Director General of the ASI Archaeological Survey of India. So Cunningham used the accounts left by Chinese Buddhist pilgrims who had visited the subcontinent between the 4th and 17th centuries CE to locate early settlements. A site like Harappa, which was not part of the itinerary of the Chinese pilgrims and was not known as an early historic city. So Harappa's seal was given to Cunningham by an Englishman. He noted the object but unsuccessfully tried to place it within the time frame with which he was familiar. It is not surprising that he missed the significance of Harappa. So, in 1924, John Marshall, Director General of the ASI, announced the discovery of a new civilization in the Indus Valley to the world. So, it was then that the world knew not only of a new civilization but also one contemporaneous with Mesopotamia. So these seals discovered at Harappa by archaeologists such as Dairam Sahani early 20th century in layers definitely much older than early historic levels, and archaeologists like Rakhal Das Banerjee found similar seals at Mohenjo-daro, leading to conjecture that these sites were part of a single archaeological culture. And similar till then, unidentified seals were found as excavations at Mesopotamian sites. It was then that the world knew not only of a new civilization but the new contemporaneous with Mesopotamia. Now, Marshall extended to excavate along regular horizontal units measured uniformly throughout the mound, ignoring the stratigraphy of the sites. This means that all artifacts recovered from the same unit were grouped together. Now we know about new techniques and questions. So, since the 1980s, there has also been growing international interest in Harappan archaeology, and specialists from the subcontinent and abroad had been jointly working at both Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. They are using modern scientific techniques, including surface exploration, to recover traces of clay, stone, metal, and plant and animal remains, as well as to minutely analyze every scrap of available evidence. These explorations promise to yield interesting results in the future. So there is a timeline in which major development in Harappan archaeologically suffered. So, what is the problem of piecing together the past? are as follows. So it is not the Harappan script and that helps in understanding the ancient civilization. Rather, it is material evidence that allows archaeologists to better reconstruct Harappan life. This material could be pottery, tools, ornament, household object, etc. So organic materials such as cloth, leather, wood and reeds generally decompose, especially in tropical regions. What survive are stone, burnt clay, metal, etc. So when we classify finds, then one simple principle of classification is in terms of material such as stone, clay, metal, bone, ivory, etc. The second is in terms of functions. Archaeologists have to decide whether, for instance, an artifact is a tool or an ornament or both or something meant for ritual use. So sometimes archaeologists have to take recourse to indirect evidence. For instance, though there are traces of cotton at some Harappan sites, to find out about clothing, we have to depend on indirect evidence, including depiction in sculpture. There are some problems in interpretation. So early archaeologists thought that certain objects which seemed unusual or unfamiliar may have had a religious significance. Attempts have also been made to reconstruct religious beliefs and practices by examining seals, some of which seem to depict ritual scenes. Others with plant motifs are thought to indicate nature worship. Several reconstructions remain speculative at present. So one thing you also need to know that when we look, for instance, in Veda, like the earliest religious text, the Rig Veda, as compiled between 1500 to 1000 BCE, mentions a god named Rudra, which is a name used for Shiva in later Puranic tradition. So, at the photo Shiva seals, which is discovered in Harappan civilization, we know. And however, unlike Shiva, Rudra in the Rigveda is neither depicted as Pasupati, which is known as Lord of Animal in general and cattle in particular, nor as a yogi. In other words, this depiction does not match the description of Rudra in the Rigveda. Is this then possibly a shaman, as some scholars have suggested? Now, in last, we know about some key points. Just like seal, they are generally contained animals motifs and signed from a script. Hoards are generally metal object and jewelry kept by people inside containers. And stratigraphy, the study of historical layers, motifs are name of animals used by the Harappans on seals to mark some sort of trademark. Proto-Shiva, a seal that shows a figure seated in a yogic posture surrounded by animals, has been designated as Proto-Shiva, an early form of one of the deities in Hinduism. So, lingas, the polished stone, were often worshipped as symbol of the god Shiva, and shamans, these were the group of men and women who claimed to have magical and healing powers and ability to communicate with the other world. And art is referred to painting, sculpture, pottery and seal making. Culture referred to term used for a group of objects distinct in style, found specifically within a geographical area and period of time. Pictographs are those which are picture-like signs to represent letters or words, and the Great Wall was best known buildings in Mohenjo-daro for bath. So granaries, buildings where grains were stored. Thanks to all. Now if you like it, like, share and subscribe to motivate us, and for the next video just tune with us, press the bell icon. Thank you.